This video is about counting atoms. We've done this already in class, but we're going to go over it again. And we're going to move on to counting the atoms and elements in chemical equations. So let's start. We have a formula. First thing we do is we write each element we see in the formula. And then we simply count them. Now I know you can look at this and tell me how many of each one there are, but I want you to write them down this way in preparation for doing it when we do equations. So we have 2, 1, and 4 oxygen. So we've done several of those before. Now let's do ones that have numbers in front of it. When they have a number in front of it, it's like having a parentheses or brackets around the formula. And that number multiplies everything inside those brackets. So write the elements. We have H. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. And 2 times 1 is 2. Next, let's try this one. We have 4 times 2, we have 8 hydrogen. 4 times 2, we have 8 oxygen. Now this one, 9 times 2, 18 hydrogen and 9 oxygen. So let's go back and name these compounds. This is sodium sulfate, a polyatomic compound. This is water. We don't use the 2 in naming it. Or we also know this as dihydrogen monoxide. This looks like water, but notice there's a 2 here. This would be dihydrogen dioxide, more commonly known as peroxide. Water again. When there are parentheses, a subscript to the right of the parentheses multiplies only the elements inside the parentheses. So here we have ammonium phosphate. Only the ammonium is in the parentheses. So everything in here is multiplied by 3. So we have 1 nitrogen times 3, so that makes 3 nitrogen. We have 4 hydrogen times 3, so that's 12 hydrogen. Now these, no parentheses, and this 4 only multiplies what it's next to. So we have 1 phosphate and 4 oxygen. Let's do another one. Al2SO4 3 times. So this is aluminum sulfate. So this number multiplies this. So we have 2 aluminum. Here we have parentheses. So this 3 multiplies everything in those parentheses. So we have 3 sulfur, and 4 times 3, we have 12 oxygen. One last one. Here we've got a 4, so we can think about, oh yeah, there's brackets or parentheses around this, so that 4 multiplies everything. So we have 3 hydrogen times 4, which is 12. We only have 1 phosphate times 4, so there's 4 phosphate. We have 4 oxygen times 4, so there's 16 oxygen in there. So let us move on to chemical equations. Here's our first one. We have hydrogen sulfate plus lead hydroxide. When put together, produces lead sulfate and water. These are the reactants. These are the products. All right, so this is how I start off. I draw a line down here to separate this side from this side. Then I write the elements I see on the reactant side, but I only write them once, even though they might appear multiple times in the formulas. So we have H, we have a sulfur, we have a lead, and then we have oxygen. But we've already got oxygen from over here. We've got hydrogen here, but we also have hydrogen already written, so we only write it once. Then we're going to, what I say, copy and paste these to the right side. So we have H, S, O, and PB. Now, why don't I just look at this side and write it down again? Well, in practice you could do that, but don't. I want you to do it my way. So, the other reason is we have a law in chemistry, the law of conservation of matter, that says whatever goes into an equation must come out of an equation. And remember, we had a lab where we tried to prove that. We had our mixture lab where we put everything together and weighed it, and then we got it out of the mixture and reweighed it and saw how far off we were from the original weight. The law of conservation of matter. What goes into a reaction must come out. So let's count these on this side. We count all of them on one side and only list it once. So we have 2 hydrogen, and here we have 4 hydrogen. Don't forget to multiply. So 4 plus 2, so we have 6 hydrogen. We have 1 sulfur. We have 4 oxygen and another 4 oxygen, so we have 8. We have 1 lead. This 4 does not multiply that lead. It only multiplies what's in the parentheses. So we have 1 lead. Now, when we get to this side, we don't use the numbers from the left side. We have to recount. So, we have 1 lead. We have 1 sulfur times 2, so we have 2 sulfurs. We have 4 times 2, 8 oxygen, plus 1 more is 9. And we have 2 hydrogen. Notice there isn't the same amount on both sides of the equation. It's because it's not balanced yet, and we're not going to balance it today. But those numbers that you see in front of formulas, like the 6 down here, are what balances the equation. So let's look at this bottom one before we come back to this one. On this side, we have sodium, hydrogen, and this isn't a C and then an L, it's Cl chlorine. Now I'm going to cut and paste those over here, and AHCl. There's one hydrogen and 1 chlorine. Now I'm going to go over to the second side and count those. I see 1 sodium, 2 hydrogen, and 1 chlorine. Once again, they're not the same on each side because it hasn't been balanced yet. All right, let's count this equation. If you recognize this equation, and you should, it is the equation for photosynthesis. So we have carbon on this side, we have hydrogen on this side, and we have oxygen on this side. We have CHO, if I had written it different. So we're going to copy and paste it to this side, CHO. Now we're going to count the elements on each side. We have a carbon here multiplied by the 6, so we have 6 carbons. We have 2 oxygens multiplied by 6, that's 12. Oh, but we have more over here. We have 6 more over here. So 12 plus 6 is 18. And we have 12 hydrogen. So let's count them on the other side now. We have 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen. We have 6 oxygen plus 12 is 18. Notice these are balanced. That is why when we write the equation for photosynthesis, we always include those 6's in there because that way it's a balanced equation. All right, I have attached a worksheet to your assignment, and I think you probably are ready to go and count atoms.